First off, I can't remember what's on my slides. Apart from this here. I'm here to talk to you a bit about, oh, sorry, can you hear me? Yeah, sorry, I keep forgetting. All right, about the UK business and competitive impacts of the CRA. Interested to know what the different sort of levels of knowledge and sort of reading in the room. Just out of interest, people have got different levels of knowledge of the CRA. Who's read it from cover to cover, every single word? Right? I have. I'm actually only 22 years old, and it's aged me so much. So, yeah, it's a big document, right? And I'm here to talk about some bits of it. But the whole point of this plenary and getting together, and also, more importantly, afterwards, is for us to all talk about the CRA, because one of the things that I found out, well, two things. I'm not a cyber expert, let me get that one right. My team are in the room, they're the real cyber experts. I'm not a CRA expert, but one of the things I have become quite good at is learning or working out who's not a cybersecurity expert and who's not a CRA expert. And I am certainly not a CRA expert, but I am what I would call a student of the CRA, and I think that's what we all are, because there's so many different interpretations about how the CRA is to be delivered, particularly outside of the European Union, which I'll touch on in a moment as well. So, anybody ever heard this little statement here? Everybody thinks the CRA and cybersecurity, the Radio Equipment Directive, is a technical problem, but it's not. It is a business problem because it affects all parts of a business, particularly the CRA. The Radio Equipment Directive, I think you could probably argue, is a bit of a technical problem because you've got one little set of cybersecurity requirements to comply with. But with the CRA, it affects the whole business, it affects the whole product, the life cycle of the product, understand what you need to do when you find vulnerabilities, and that is something that we'll be talking about throughout the day. Anybody familiar with the IEC 62443 series of standards for industrial automation control system? Excellent. Anybody know what rule number 1 is in that set of standards? What they? Basically, it says before you do anything, you have to get the absolute support and input from your management. Right? If anybody's been in an IEC 62443 training course, they will have also have seen that is the start of it. Is you haven't got management backing, then you are going to fail. Right? So hopefully, if there's any managers in the room or CEOs, you already know about that. But if not, that's a message you need to take away to your company, because without that management support, it is going to be difficult. In fact, funny enough, like a couple of customers I've had recently have been doing the 62443-4-1, 4-2, which is all the secure design lifecycle stuff, and they were stopped from doing it a couple of years ago. And of course they were a little bit upset because they put all this work in, but now we've got the CRA coming in with the secure by design requirements. That would have set them on a very good stead to going forward. So that is a very, very big takeaway. So if there's probably one message from my entire presentation, is please think about this. And throughout the day we'll be talking and I say afterwards. So somebody said something to me yesterday, and I stopped at Costa on the way down and put this slide in. And we were talking about cybersecurity, and this is a colleague of mine. She's not a cybersecurity person, and we got talking about cybersecurity, and I said, what do you think is the biggest problem? And it blew me away. She goes, not enough businesses are talking about cybersecurity. And that is, I never really thought about it. I knew it, but I never really thought about it. It wasn't at the front of my mind. Out of interest, and this is a slide that's been put up at the IOTSF a few times. Anybody know what the cost of cybercrime is? Around, for the end of 2026, is going to cost the world GDP in a percentage. Go on.
I know the number. $10.5 trillion.
Yep. Which is about 10%-ish of global GDP, which is an enormous amount of money. Anybody know what it's predicted to be in 2030 as a percentage? 15%. And that's the crime, not the mitigation. And the design of security into products and everything. So it is a big number. And so businesses need to be talking a lot more about this. And I put on here the why, which is something that I was, when I was driving down, here yesterday was, anybody listen to Darknet Diaries? And anyway, there was an article about what the biggest DDoS attack was in the world ever. Anybody know what the number is? No? How many devices were attacked? What the actual data? Sorry?
8 billion.
It was, well, 3 to 4 million products or devices were attacked, right, in a space of, it was actually a short attack, but the amount of data that was going through was something like 30 terabits per second, right, and that happened weeks ago. And I think the actual person that did it was has actually just been indicted by, I think it was the Alaskan government or state government, but nevertheless, and that was a DDoS for hire attack. So that again, I think, hopefully, you know, amplifies the message I'm trying to get across and makes it really important. That's why what we do here at the IOTSF in setting up things like frameworks and educating people, webinars and everything, why that's really, really important. And hopefully my next few slides will explain why we should be moving a little bit more forward on that, because we're in a very unique place to be doing that. So, a little bit about the, I want a couple of slides here about where the European framework is, because we're here to talk about CRA, but it does fit or does complement and does touch on other European regulations. And I've got another slide which talks crossovers a little bit with the UK. So there's things like we've got the NIS2 directive. I mean, anybody that's familiar with the NIS2 directive, you know, you do not, as a product manufacturer, have a you know, legal obligation to comply with the NIS2 directive. That's for, you know, bigger companies, critical national infrastructure and so on. However, I mean, some of my, you know, esteemed competitors in the room, we've all talked about this. We are getting customers that are developing products that the requirements for the people who have to comply with NIS2 are being passed down the supply chain so that they can demonstrate and certainly provide confidence up the supply chain to say, yes, if we're going to employ a product in a particular, you know, a particular situation, we want to make sure it's, you know, it's compliant, or we've got a good level of confidence that it's going to be secure. I mean, the machinery regulation as well, where is it? There we go, up there. Again, you know, machinery are products. There is, again, a crossover. So that just gives you a bit of an idea of the overall European framework. But, oh, why is that not working? Here expands a little bit more on this. But we also have, even though we're talking about CRA as Europe, we also have the UK PSTI and the Cybersecurity and Resilience Bill. So even though we're here to talk about CRA, you know, there is going to be this kind of overlap, because the CSR is, I called it NIS2 for the UK, and I had my fingers slapped for saying that, because apparently it's not exactly that, but it looks very similar in my opinion. But nevertheless, you know, the UK regulations that we have and the European regulations that are coming along, they all interleave with each other. So it's really important that we not just look at CRA, we look at the other impacts for, you know, for business and industry. And I'll jump ahead on that one because I'll come back to this in a little bit. So, a little bit about the business problem. Interestingly, have you got any product manufacturers in the room who are willing to give us a little bit of an insight into what they think their problems might be with the CRA, or maybe problems is the wrong word, the challenges in complying with the CRA? No. Okay, fair enough. Here's a few challenges that we've identified, or I've identified, I should say, and even though we have European members, absolutely, you know, we're not going to forget those, because they're going to have challenges coming into the UK as well as those, you know, people from the UK going into Europe. But we do have some challenges which we probably need to talk about. And I've just put a few down here, but if I've missed any, I'd be certainly happy to know, because this is one of the things I want to be doing, is going and having further conversations on this, you know, bringing to the front and you know, talking openly about what we can do. But these are the main ones that I hear from customers. You know, we've left the EU, fair enough, that's done. So we now have this regulation we have to comply with in Europe, and also the regulation we have to comply with in the UK, even though the product side of the UK is a lot less than what's expected in, you know, in the CRA. And our government keeps telling us that we are getting closer to Europe, You know, I don't want to get into the politics of it, but, you know, it could potentially be that we end up being part of Europe again. So we probably need to, even though we're people that are putting products into Europe, obviously have to work with it, but we need to prepare ourselves for the chance that we might be unifying again. But, you know, we might have to edit that bit out of the video. But nevertheless, we've left the EU. It gives us a duplication of regulations, although, again, the UK side of it is a little bit simpler. Right, but one of the biggest problems that I've heard from customers is the investment and productivity drag, because they basically have to, like I say, have this dual regulatory paths to go through, and that is, like I say, from the legal perspective. But the individual business challenges are, and this applies to Europe, not just Europe, but the UK as well. However, when I come to my next slide and talk about what help's available, and the question that I will put to the room is the business challenge I hear constantly, and I guess, you know, some of my esteemed colleagues here will have already get the same, is most people don't really understand where their products sit in scope. Anybody having that problem presently? Understanding? Maybe, maybe not. They don't fully understand the size of the task, and this is probably the biggest issue that I am getting from our customers, is you know, there's not just cybersecurity requirements now. You also have the vulnerability handling. There's also keeping an eye on what's going on in the life cycle of the product, making sure that you're maintaining the security. If you find a vulnerability, you have to you know, report it. And I say that's the first step from a business challenge where people are struggling to understand. And then customers are trying to understand, you know, where they are now and how to prepare. You know, if you've got a product now and you haven't done anything, what's your confidence that that product is secure? I mean, Richard and I had conversations earlier on about secure boot, but, you know, people are saying it should be in, people are saying it shouldn't be in. Nevertheless, you know, what is the status? What is the cybersecurity health? That's what I'm trying to say here. What is the cybersecurity health of your particular product and your business? Remember, red is kind of a technical problem, but because of all these things that I mentioned previously just now, it is more than a technical problem, it is a business problem. All right. So, we've got a little bit of a steep climb ahead, and I do put UK business are struggling a bit. And again, I apologise to UK companies, because we're not completely forgotten, you know, about you. But in Europe, I don't know if you're aware, the European Union has set aside some money to help Europe, well, the micro, small and medium enterprises in Europe. And it's not really a lot of money, still 22 million, I think only 16.5 of it is actually available to direct businesses. But we in the UK are not eligible to apply for that, unless of course you've got a branch in a European member state. And that funding that is available has a number of focus areas that it's directed at, such as knowledge improvement, so training, understanding what's going on, developing a secure by design culture, supply chain risk assessments, and I think it's up to each company can get up to 30,000 euros to help them comply, with the Cyber Resilience Act. Now, that might not seem like a lot of money, and 60.5, divided by 30,000 still. It's only a drop in the ocean, but nevertheless, that money is there. It is the first act, I suppose, of the European Commission supporting European companies, but we as in the UK don't really have that support. But, we still have to do the same things if you put in products on the market, and not just the UK, globally. So, we're still going to get to the top of the stairs, as you can see from my lovely image here, but we have to walk rather than go up the escalator. So my question now is, what can we do, right? Or what have we been doing? So, what can the IOTSF do? And what can we do as individuals? And the way I put it forward is we need to go and speak to our government, just explain the situation. If you look on any of the government websites, there are different types of funding available, for cybersecurity, but it seems to be more attuned to things like critical national infrastructure rather than individual devices and companies manufacturing products. But as I said, the biggest DDoS attack in the history of the world happened weeks ago. So that shows you that it's important that products, IoT products, are secure. All right, and from this, you know, we are, as a nation, we do need that little bit of help. But I can tell you now that that door has already been knocked upon. And we have, thankfully, gained some interest from certain stakeholders in government. And we will no doubt be having people come in and speak to us in the future from government. But what I would ask is that we as a collective, as an organisation, in a nice way, get together and start talking about, you know, how we can all help each other, as well as getting help from our government. So, you know, knock on that door. I mean, there were other types of funding as well in the past to talk about. Certainly the UK with I think it was the PSTI, about, you know, which enterprise type products were going to be compliant and what were not compliant. But I don't think that is really it was really enough. And I apologise if I'm sounding like I'm ranting a little bit and saying we need more, but we certainly need to help each other, you know, going forward. So where does that leave us? A call to cyber arms. There are so many experts in this room, and not just in this room, but in the IOTSF. And I think, you know, as I say, unity is our strength. And I think the IOTSF as an organisation has a really, you know, we are at a pivotal point where we can actually, you know, really make some noise and really make a difference, not just for the UK, but for Europe and possibly even globally as well. We know we certainly have chapters in the IOTSF around the world, but of course it's, you know, started in the UK. Most of the people are involved are in the UK, but we, you know, we don't want to be just focusing totally on the UK. But the IOTSF has frameworks in place. We have experts, we have webinars, we have training, but we need to probably grow that, because if you look at say the Radio Equipment Directive, there are organisations whose primary role is to help the radio equipment manufacturing you know, industry, and help them with guidelines. It's not an official organisation or official organisations, but they focus on cyber, they focus on radio, they focus on EMC, safety, and anything that affects the radio. And I think, unless somebody can point out where I'm wrong here, there is that's kind of missing for the CRA. I think people are talking about moving forward and producing such an organisation, but, you know, the IOTSF have you know, already got that muscle memory. You know, they're up to you know, a sub 2-hour half marathon, right? So we can get it to sub you know, 1.5 hours soon. But what I'm asking here is, you know, please do provide, you know, the IOTSF, me, with your thoughts about how we can, you know, up the ante on this and help each other and help the world in IoT. So what can the IOTSF ever do? You know, what can the IOTSF do continue to go past here? First off, I just say have a think about it, right? There might be a lot of stuff of rambling on here. Some of it you might think is a lot of rubbish, and if it's rubbish, please do come and tell me. I'm a thick-skinned northerner, so I can take it, usually. And I say it's not just about the UK, even though most of the conversation that I've been giving with you today, or one-sided conversation, has been about the UK. There are chapters, there are organisations, and many of our members and stakeholders, friends, colleagues are experts from around the world. I would also ask, are the tools already there? Do we just need to have a little bit of a regulatory feng shui and just, you know, move it around a little bit? You know, or just tidy it up a little bit. I don't know. This is me just chucking these words out to you. So I'm really interested in feedback and thoughts. And I am very, very, very looking forward to speaking to you this afternoon, seeing what you think. Chuck crazy ideas at us, because some of those are the best. And, well, I would say this is my cue to kind of end this ramble. And I thank you for your time, and hopefully speak to you later on this afternoon or this morning. Thank you.